This is Van Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Aaron Landeros. And you're a life mindset training nutrition coach. And I want to welcome you to the Family Electric Ghost podcast. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. It's always cool to talk to new people, let everybody know that we're live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch right now. And we'll also be on Newsly later tonight. We are a featured podcast on that platform. So if you check that out, you can use the coupon code GHOST, and that'll be for free for a month. You can check it out. But that's an audio only platform that we're featured on. So later tonight, the audio only version of this will be there. We'll be on a lot of other platforms by tomorrow as well. We do have your Instagram up, and there's a lot there, but that will be clickable. So you don't have to like remember everything you see on the screen on your Instagram. That will be clickable on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and any other place that we're going to be on. What we're going to talk about tonight is what we're going to talk about is getting your life together by becoming a better version of yourself. We're going to talk about your story. But before we get into that, we always ask every guest that's on the show, we ask them a couple questions. And one of the questions is, what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
Right on, right on. Thank you for having me on. Most definitely. What motivates me is my son. My son is about a little over a year and a half, and he's just the most beautiful thing in the world to me right now. And that's what got me started on really buckling down and deciding to completely commit to the program that I teach on my Instagram account. And that's what keeps me going. Honestly, I've been doing it for so long now, and I've been so committed now that I just have an unbreakable mindset. And I wish to pass that on to other people, because when I was at the lowest of my lowest, I saw no light at the end of the tunnel. There was no reason for me to live. And as hard it is to admit, I would beg God to take me away. And that vulnerability and that weakness made me realize that I don't really have anything to hold on to. So it's we who we need to fall in love with in order to, get up another day and get moving another day, because motivation doesn't last very long. You need drive. You need something. You need a spark inside of you to keep you pushing.
That's definitely true because I'm a cancer survivor. When I was 27, I'm 56. I got diagnosed with like a cancer, and I saw a lot of other cancer people around, and they were kind of down in they really didn't seem to have maybe the right mindset. And
Right.
I as a cancer victim, I was like, I didn't want to be a victim. I said, you know what? I am going to beat it. I'm going to get through it. And I did, because it's like I had a lot to live for. I had been, I'm 27 years old, and I hadn't, I didn't have a girlfriend. I wasn't married, didn't have a kid. And I could have been thinking, well, it's the end, everything's bad. But I said, you know what? I need to now focus on, I need to find my soulmate. I need to, have my life with my family. And I need to be able to get to things. And so I gave myself a bunch of future goals. And that made me realize that like the cancer caused me to look at life, and instead of being like on the downward spiral, I said, well, I can actually do better. I can actually get out of this, and I can recover. And everybody kind of can run into that kind of moment in their life. They don't get the physical cancer, but they get like a different type of cancer comes in their soul. And it sounds like you
Absolutely.
had that. And it's a mind frame. It's a mindset that you can get yourself out of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot easier to act yourself into positive thinking than it is to think yourself into positive thinking, because you created the problem with the mindset that you have now. And so the only way to find the solution is to raise your rate of vibration so that you're no longer in that negative mindset. That's when you'll realize that the problems you had in your negative mindset are not present in your positive mindset. They're not really
Mhm.
problems anymore. They were opportunities for you to overcome.
Yeah, if we look at it like as a musician, I take a couple of things like a lot of musicians they struggle trying to be perfect. Practice, 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 like an athlete trying to get that 3 point shot, do 1,000 hours, 10,000 hours, right, to get the perfect shot, right. And a lot of times, what we learn, if you get into like the great guys, like the Miles Davises, like you get these Herbie Hancocks, and there's a story where Herbie Hancock was playing with Miles Davis, and he hit the wrong chord live, and he's like, "Oh, it's over. I'm gonna get kicked out of the band." And Miles like looked at him and then took the song with the wrong note and changed the key of the whole song and went a different direction. And then after he had a conversation with Herbie, and he was like, "No," and Herbie was like, "Oh, I thought I hit the worst thing," and it was like, "No, like there's no real bad note. There's an opportunity. You can
There
look
you
at that as an opportunity to evolve the song, or you could look at it as like you did something wrong." And if you have a more open mindset, you can take like the mistakes, the happy accidents, the things that you go through in life. You're going to make mistakes, but you can learn from the teaching moments. And if you
absolutely.
don't be so down on yourself and you learn how to adapt and evolve, you realize that you're going to continue to make those mistakes and you're going to learn from them.
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely. Yeah,
so I think
man.
it's kind of in a world where we got so many tools to try to make us perfect, and they get these kids like, oh, I got to use the computer to make everything perfect, and they're not willing to be vulnerable. And
Yeah,
vulnerability is a part of life, is like and being open to it and learn how to handle it.
absolutely. And unfortunately, one of the biggest problems with the youth nowadays is they want to run straight to drugs and alcohol and video games and everything and anything they can
Mm-hmm.
do to escape reality. And I understand it. If you don't have any positive role models that you can cling on to, then you're going to find the next best thing, because most of us aren't taught solid
Yeah.
principles. You know, if you don't have a non-negotiable
Mm-hmm.
daily set of habits that you stick to no matter what, you're wide open
Yeah.
to take any advice. And someone could look really fresh and look very professional and give you some terrible advice, and that'll just lead you down the wrong path.
So, yeah, there's a problem with the foundational kind of like not that it's like morality, but just foundational kind of common sense, right? And
Hmm.
just certain things, and people get easily swayed by social media, and just
Yep.
because there's a million views, 1,000 likes, that doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it good. It doesn't make it the best thing. It's the popular thing versus that something that actually is unpopular could actually be like the right thing,
Right.
or it could be the thing that's actually morally like not gray area, but the thing that's more like bullying or negative could be very popular, and then you
Right.
don't go on the wrong road. And if you don't have anybody telling you what the right road is or the way to discern things, like how like there's all kinds of information, but has anybody ever taught you how to discern that information and be able to have critical thinking to not be swayed like like the sheep? You're like, do you have the ability to actually take what you're getting and process it and then say, can I actually ask some questions about that, or just buy the whole thing?
Right. No, I understand. I personally, on my Instagram account, I show my daily habits. The getting up early, reading and reflecting, going to the gym, tracking my macros, and just making sure I don't break character. And those daily sets of
Mm-hmm.
habits are what build my character, so that if something does change, my principles don't. I already showed up for myself
Mm-hmm.
every morning, posted it on my story so that everyone can see I'm up again, I'm doing it again. Because like I said, not many of us had examples growing up. We don't really know what to do unless someone tells us how to do it, what to do, what not to do. And it's funny, and I'll bring it back to the
Mm-hmm.
beginning. One of the reasons for why I felt so miserable is because I felt so alone. In a world with billions of people, and you to feel alone, it's a mindset thing. And honestly,
Yeah.
I went years and years just trying to figure out how to do it on my own. And that's how I stumbled upon this program. It's just, well, I can't get a good night's sleep because my mind is just racing. I mean, even at 4 o'clock in the morning when the birds were chirping, my mindset was telling me, stop that noise. I couldn't deal with my own thoughts. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it's because most of us have thoughts that are not even ours. We're living off of
Yeah.
what we were taught at a young age and what we absorbed at a young age.
And a lot of us get the imposter syndrome. You get people telling you you're not good enough, or you get people telling you like you don't deserve it, that you're not beautiful, that you're not this, you're not that. And so then that's not that's not a truth, but it becomes a truth to you,
Mhm,
right? It's
mhm.
just it's like a belief, and you think it's true, and eventually you get to the point like they were telling me a lot of BS, but like at a young age, a child can't really discern that. So if you're getting that kind of like input, then you don't know how to shake it off.
Right.
Right? You don't know how to, like an animal gets attacked and they escape, they got to shake it off. We've kind of lost the ability to know how to shake that off, to get the noise out. We
That's
kind of
right.
there's a lot of Eastern philosophies that have ways to center yourself, ways to get breathing, to get the noise out. But Western
Mhm.
philosophy is, oh no, take a pill, drink, do something external.
Yep.
Where Eastern philosophies have this thing that you can use your mind, you can use your body, you can use breathing, you can use that. You can kind of connect to the universe and be open to it. Where other people, that's
Absolutely.
foo foo, I can't do that. And so, like, when you start to open up your mind beyond, maybe what and look what is out there in the whole world in terms of knowledge and understanding practices, there's a lot of old stuff, a lot of
Right.
indigenous stuff, a lot of
Yeah. A
that
lot of people
can
don't
help you.
practice self-awareness, you know. A lot of people are just very selfish, and it's a slight neurosis when you try to avoid pain for so long. You cause yourself to have a
Hmm.
flawed sense of reality. You know, fact and truth are not the same. Fact is reality, and truth is our perception of reality. And the problem with perception, it's
Exactly.
influenced by the way you feel. So if you have a negative mindset, all you're going to see is negativity in the world. If you have a positive mindset, you'll see positivity in the world. It's also, it comes down to, negative people think, well, what if this, what if that, you know, what if this happens, what if that happens? Positive think people think,
Yeah.
even if this happens, even if that happens, even if you still got to do it, we still got to get up, we still got to go and get it.
Yeah. You roll with the punches. It's kind of like that idea. Like when you're an improvisational jazz musician, you don't look at the bad notes, right? You think you can still do it, right? You believe you can do it. And it's not written down, right? You can, it's like, because you trust yourself. It's a
That's
matter
right.
of like, and building that kind of ability to trust your capability, right? I know I've been playing 15 years, 5 years, 10 years. I know I can do it. Like the athlete
Yeah,
that does the 10,000 hours, they know they can do it. They know they can do it. Now they can get
that's
psyched out. So then you get an athlete, right? They know how to do it, but then they start getting one loss, and then they get another loss, and then they psych themselves out, even though they physically and mentally did have a capability 2 games ago, but
hmm
they get into a slump and then they can't get out of it. And that's
that's
the
right.
mind.
That's
That's
right.
not the body. their capability, they lose it. You know, everybody can lose it. Like even if you got physical capability, you can still lose it if
Oh yeah.
you lose it here, you know.
You know, there's a saying that goes, hard work will beat talent when talent doesn't want to work. So, you know, when you get to the
Yeah,
top, a lot of people fall off because you lose when you're winning. When you're at the top, you're susceptible to losing. When you're the underdog, all you're doing is grinding. So you're already at the bottom. What is there to lose? You can only go up
yeah, you
from
got a
there.
lot to fight. If you're trying to fight, yeah, you're just fighting. It's like I'm gonna keep on fighting. I got something to prove. If you get to
Exactly.
the top and you think you're the best, it's like you don't have anything. But you start slacking. You mentally
Exactly.
start slacking. You physically start slacking, and then
Yeah.
then the bad things happen because you
Yeah.
assume it's gonna be a rosy scenario. But
That's right.
anybody that's like really there, you know, knows there's like a wave to life. And you be a ship
Absolutely.
on the ocean, it's like it's great till the hurricane comes. And then it's like in a bad tidal, it's like now you're going through the what you're coming through crest, and like what the heck? It was great 2 days ago. Well, it's not always gonna be like it was 2 days ago. So you gotta
Exactly.
know how to handle that rough sea. You know, and a lot of people are like, oh, there's never gonna be a rough sea. It's like, well, that's not realistic.
No, no, there's ups and downs to life. You just got to stay consistent. And you know, people that lose their momentum, it's because they stopped working as hard as they started working. So you just got to keep working as hard as you did at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. Actually, there should be no end. It should be day after day, mastering day after
Yeah,
day.
it
You know.
doesn't really. But I think that's a problem because people go get their degree. They graduate from high school, then they go to college to get their, and then they get their certificates. They're like, well, this means I got it. And then they get into situations like, well, oh, I thought I had, I thought I had it. I thought I had all the things I'm supposed to have. And then life throws something at you. You say, well, you know what? It never ends. It never stops. Right. So a lot of times, if you think about like in music, they think it's a young person's game. But ask a jazz musician or a blues guy. We keep on playing till we're dead. We don't stop. But in the
Right on.
rock game, in the pop game, they're like, oh, it's a young person's game, and if you pass 25, you're done. You're done. It's like, why are you done? You don't have to be done, but you let somebody frame it, and then you think you're done. It's like you can evolve, but if you think it's done because they told you it's done, it's like, well, you're not pushing. Like you still could push, but you
Hmm.
chose not to because you listened to what they told you.
Oh
And
yeah.
a lot of times it's like it's the bleeding edge. And when you're on the bleeding edge, guess what? A lot of people say there's all these haters saying, "Well, we never seen that before." Well, what does that matter? Because that's what you got to do. You got to
Right.
innovate.
It's funny you should say that. I get greatly motivated when I see the older guys at the gym, the guys that look like they're in their 60s and 70s, because those guys have have been doing it for so long, and they're still going. They're not looking for an end. You know, the young guys are there to pick up the girls. They're trying to get the abs. They're trying to get the muscles popping. The older guys know they're there for their mindset to just keep them going in the right in the right path, and not lose their positive mindset.
Yeah, it's like the law of attraction. Because if you let the negative thoughts take over, like you're going to be stuck in that negative zone, right? But if you have that positivity, you feel like you have that growth mindset, then that will attract opportunities. And people say, well, it's arrogant. That guy's like, he's all full of himself. No, it's like if you believe, it
Hmm.
can seem like it's arrogance. And then people can say, well, I don't want that. And then you kind of, I don't want to be successful. I don't want to have money. I don't want to do because that's like offensive to my aesthetic, right? But it's like you don't have to look at it that way. You can look at it
Hmm.
as like there's nothing wrong with having a positive self-image
Hmm.
because then you feel good. And if you feel good, there's going to be more people around you if you're not prickly and pissed off. If you have
Absolutely.
a warm kind of opening mindset, going to have more people around you than the person who's like, I hate everything. It's like, well, how many people are going to have around you with that? Or people who also hate everything. And then what does that breed?
Right. I completely understand. I was at one point 265 pounds, and I would show up wearing a sweater and big baggy shorts, just trying to be as comfortable as I could be, and not show the fact that I was so insecure. Now I'm down to about 180 pounds, and I'm working out in my wife beater and just looking at myself in the mirror, not because I'm in love with myself or anything like that, but nobody else knows how long and how hard I had to work to get rid of the fat,
To get
get
to
rid
that.
of the insecurities. And when you're not comfortable in your own skin, you're constantly fighting a losing battle in your mind. You're creating imaginary evils.
Yeah, because if you don't feel good, if you're not healthy, I learned as from the cancers, like to get into a more healthy state, like better food, exercise, positive things, not drinking, not smoking, not doing drugs, is like having organic food, all kinds of balanced stuff to get into more balance. And I'm a Buddhist, so it's a lot about balance. And when I got into these ideas, I was like, I need to positive in, positive out. If I have that mindset, everything's going to go like, it's going to go a lot better. Not that there aren't going to be patches, but I'm going to have a easier time getting through it. Not that there won't still have to work. You still have to work. And I think this is where people forget. It's like, when do I stop working? It's like, you never stop working until you're not here. You got, and everybody wants to, you can have a vacation, but it's like, you can't just give up, right? Or just forget, I don't have to do anything. Then you lose all of it. Like you lose all your muscle memory. If you're a
Mm-hmm.
musician and you don't practice, you lose everything. Like if you're an athlete, you don't do it, you lose it. If
Mm-hmm.
I don't do my piano exercise, I lose it, right? If I don't play my bass guitar, I lose it. So you have to, if you want to be in it, you got to be in it.
Yeah. One of the key factors is that the work instills the worth. So if you don't put any work in, you don't feel worth anything. So it's with anything. It's with going for a jog or going for a bike ride. You could feel just down in the dumps. But once you get moving, once you get the blood flowing, and once you start breathing, you just snap out of it. It's almost like a trance, like a spell when you have that negative mindset.
Well,
And
that's how you, but it's also the chemicals that get generated. Your body generates its own like
uh,
dopamine. It creates, all these like hormones and stuff. When you do what you should do as a human being, like any animal, you see an animal in a cage and it can't move, then it gets depressed and
mhm,
it gets sick. And we put ourselves in these virtual cages and we wonder
mhm,
why we end up like that. But any animal is going to end up like that if you
mhm.
put yourself in the cage.
Oh yeah, and it's bad for your health. Depression, it it messes up the mind's brain ability to create, to use thoughts to mold the future you desire. When you're constantly in a flight or a fight mode, your internal organs shut down. You don't need them to fight or to run.
Yeah.
You're stressed out. You're constantly looking over your shoulder. It's no way to live.
Yeah, it's like the tiger or the werewolf or the wolf is at your door, and so you're just triggering the adrenaline and the cortisol, and you're just getting like wiped out. Like that, you got to learn how to shake it off, learn
Hmm.
how to connect. Because human beings are meant to be in the world moving, not just
Absolutely.
sitting in a room, right, or sitting at a desk. And some of the modern world has kind of made us think, oh, you should just be in that cube sitting there for the 8 hours. Yeah, and then maybe that's how you make your money, but the rest of the day you better do something else, because like we're meant to move, we're meant to be in the nature, we're meant to be breathing, to be outside doing things with the sun on our back, and some folks are like, oh, we're beyond that. It's like not exactly.
No, no. That's why I get up early. That's why I get up early and I go straight to the gym, straight to a workout to raise my positive mental attitude, to get that high rate of vibration. And when you do this for so long and so often, when you get a negative thought, it's easy to check it real quick, almost
Hmm.
like an intruder in your mind. And you can even break it
Mm-hmm.
down and ask yourself, why did I get this thought? Why did I feel this way? And you get better at getting to the source of the negativity. And if you deal with it right away, then it's more likely that you're not going to feel it again. But a lot of people avoid their problems, and problems multiply when you avoid them.
When they add up, yeah, but it's like you got to have focus, like you said. If once you start, training your mind, because a lot of people
Hmm.
forget, like you train your body, and you can train for skills, but your mind needs training too. And the exercise, a lot of Eastern philosophy has a lot of mind exercises where you learn how to get the noise out. You learn how to do the
Hmm.
focus. You learn how to take the bad thoughts and kind of put them somewhere, but also like start to question, it's not just Eastern thoughts. I mean, there was some, in the seven, there's this idea from the Victorian poets, like the looking glass self. What does that mean? When you look in the mirror, you start to look at the self. And like, why are you melancholy? Why are you passionate? Why are you happy? Why are you mad? And when you get into that, it's like you start to question, what are these feelings? Rather than trying to stomp them down, you start to like, why am I feeling that way? What is that? And then, as an artist, artists turn that into music, poetry, writing, plays. But if you're not in that mindset, then you still have to figure out how to deal with that. And a lot of
Right.
people say, well, that's just for the artist, but it's not. Like you need to do that as a human being, whether you're an artist or not.
Absolutely. The hardest thing about self mastery is that you need self honesty. And most people don't want to admit that they've been messing up in life. And it's actually really easy to just look at yourself in the mirror first thing in the morning. All you got to do is wake up a little bit earlier so that you just have time to stand there in front of the mirror and just honestly ask yourself if you're proud of yourself or not. And if you're not proud of yourself, then that's all right. Now you can start working on yourself. And it just takes one key element at a time. And over time, you develop a strong character, and then you can start helping others.
Hmm. Yeah, once you help yourself, then you can learn how to take those techniques and be a teacher and pass it on. And
Mhm.
a lot of times you have to learn how to tell your own story first, and then make it a story that you can that can elevate other people, right? So you learn how to handle your own life. You get
Hmm.
into your own self-worth, you get self-love, right? And then you can tell your story and you can tell people how, from your own story, how they can make their story better. And so then
Absolutely.
you start to build this kind of oral history. It's like all humanity has had these oral histories, and they're supposed to be lessons learned. And the
Hmm.
ancients would tell these stories, and they were designed to kind of take what they learn and pass it on. And somehow it's like we've forgotten. It's like that's what it is. I mean, that's what books are, but that's what I mean, before there were books. There were these oral histories that people would tell people these lessons. And
Hmm.
it really, when you break it down, it's like that's where you have to continue to do that. In the humanity,
Absolutely.
if you listen to other people and you listen, you can start to with the positive, a law of attraction going to the positive side rather than a negative side.
I think one of the biggest problems is that we communicate through text messages so much now that face-to-face conversation is very minimal nowadays. And you can actually get
Mm,
more out of a conversation if you just have it face to face or like this on a Zoom call. you can get real-time feedback,
Yeah,
as opposed
it's
to when
better.
you text when they have a long time to think about what they're going to text back, or sometimes they just even ghost you, which that sucks too. But when you're put on the spot and you have to come up with your answers on the spot, you reveal your true self. And I think that's scary to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's just like that's the what's the vulnerability? And then people will put on a mask. It's like even if you get into the face to face, you get people who are like kind of self deluding, so they put on a mask and they could look perfect, but they got a
Hmm.
lot of problems, right? So they're putting on this mask, and then if you're kind of into like feelings that you can be with that person, is like there's something off, like you can feel the vibe. They're
Yeah.
saying this, but they're vibing that, right? And so
Hmm.
when you physically or you see them like this, you can kind of pick up on it, and you're like, there's something a little off. And then the question is, do you ask them? Do you push on that, or you say, oh, I don't know, I don't like, maybe I'll just stay away from that. But so that's where people have to start to like the self analysis has to happen, because you could still present
Hmm.
and not work out.
Absolutely. When your thoughts, your words, and your actions don't align, your life is out of whack, because your subconscious mind is keeping track of everything you think, everything you say, and everything you do. And it'll figure out where you're being fraudulent. So then that's why we have that internal turmoil. And a lot of people don't understand that sometimes you have to not speak and just listen to your thoughts. Some people go straight from idea to speak. They don't actually think about what they're about to say, and they're giving
Yeah.
out the power to their words. And when your subconscious mind sees you or hears you say something and you don't have any follow through, it it understands that you're not worth what you say. And that's why a lot of people have a hard time starting any type of task that they want to start. Lots of people want to start their own business. Lots of people want to start a hobby, start going to the gym, start tracking their meals and all that, but they just say they're going to do it, and they say they're going to do it, but they don't do it, and that actually makes it harder for you to start.
Yeah, I think it's like the accountability, because some people are scared of like responsibility, right? And you have a responsibility to yourself. It's like, so if you the first responsibility is to like establishing your own goals and being
Hmm.
like a whole person. And if you can't manage that, then you're not going to be able to manage other things. And
Hmm.
so if you're not really stepping up, then it's all going to start being like a house of cards. And that's like I always tell, like my grandpa was a coal miner, and he kind of just said, I got to show up to feed my family,
Hmm.
and it's a dangerous job in the mine.
Hmm.
And there's some days he didn't want to be in the mine, and he was in mine explosions and cave-ins, but every day he did that for his 9 kids, because that's what he had to do. And then he was self-reliant, built his own house, was a plumber, learned how to be an electrician, didn't even go to high school, but he built a house, he had a farm, learned how to he could fix his own car. He was like a self-reliant guy that like figured out from that training in the mine how to take that forward and build a house, put the pipes in, do the electricity, do everything. Because he started like, well, I'm going to take that and I'm going to build on it. So he showed
That's right.
up and he did it, right? And so a lot of us in our family, we saw like what he did and say, you know what, we got a responsibility to show up because Grandpa showed up.
Hmm.
So you got to show up.
Absolutely. It's funny you should say that. The mind is like a muscle, like any, if you're doing bicep curls or bench press, you're putting the muscle under pressure. You break it down to that point. When you take on responsibilities like that, and you're putting the pressure on yourself of having to take care of that many kids, having such a family, and you have to show up. If you don't show up, your family's not gonna it's not gonna eat, it won't survive. If you don't push the weight, it's gonna land on you, you're gonna drop it. So by repeatedly going to work and just having a positive mindset about it, he was able to flourish.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people say, "Well, I'm not doing that." That's beneath me. And he always said, like, any work is honorable. And I think some people kind of lost that. Like, all work is honorable if you're showing up and you're doing the best you can, right? And so
Absolutely.
there's some people say, well, they think, oh, unless I'm some kind of tycoon, and I'm some like super executive. Not everybody's going to be Bill Gates. Not everybody's going to be Elon Musk. And just because you're not a loser if you're not that person, you're not a loser if you're not an investment banker, you're not a lawyer, you're not a doctor. Everybody's got a role in society. And then people want to frame people, and they get a whole group of people say, well, I'm a loser if I go do that 9 to 5. I got to do something else. And it's like, you're not a loser if you do what you think is right, right? And you put some discipline in it, and there are things that you can happen. You can evolve, but just not doing anything, is that honorable to this? Like, well, I'm just going to drop out. It's like, so I had examples of, like, even though it was hard, even though it wasn't the highest level, there's respect in doing what you're doing.
Everyone has a different zone of genius, and not everyone's going to see the same. They're not going to look at the world the same as you do. So you have to find your passion and just cultivate it. Yeah, we all have to deal with the 9 to 5 at one point, but if you put in time and effort to your side hustle, whether it be music or fitness, art, whatever it is, if you do it passionately and over time, it'll grow into something big. Because someone else will
because that's the thing, is like, you don't have to be but you don't have to be your 9 to 5. Like a lot of times, like, as musicians, we all have our day job, right? We have a lot of artists, we have our our site, our main job that we really, maybe we don't dig it because we really, like, we're the starving artists, and we're starving artist movers, and we're in that moving truck, and then we play the gig at night. But it's like, the passion is like how many guys do that kind of thing? They do their main job, and then they got their side gig. They're playing those shows, they're doing the art, they're in the gallery. That's like, but you get people that say, well, they don't entertain ever having the side gig. They just, they never entertain, like, their dream. Like, they kind of push down. They're like, oh, if I was a little kid and I wanted to be a freaking astronaut, well, I didn't get to do that. But maybe they had a different dream, and people told them that was silly. It was silly to try to think you could be a musician, or silly to go do a play, or do painting, or that's not something that's going to make money. So you don't even entertain doing it because that's not a real job. And there's a lot of artists that get dissuaded because they've been told that, like, the arts isn't, that's not acceptable. But then other people, they just have this passion, and they say, well, I'm going to do it. I don't care. I'm still going to do it. And that's the difference, is like, when you find that you're not going to let the naysayers tell you that you can't do it, you're going to do it.
Yeah, it just comes down to discipline and executing your vision. And if you don't have a vision, you don't have anything to aim for. And if you don't have any discipline, then even if you do have a vision, you're not going to get after it. And you need to be aware of the fact that you need to build your confidence too. And confidence doesn't come from, like, motivational videos or anything like that. It comes from your subconscious mind observing you, showing up again, and again and again. You build a reputation with yourself after repeating the same process over and over again. So the greatest athletes and authors and musicians and writers, all they did was they just put in more time than everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the 10,000 hours I talk about. Like, everybody thinks it's an overnight sensation. They always tell a story about Jimi Hendrix. Like Jimi Hendrix, from a kid, got a guitar, he's left-handed. He restrung it, never had a lesson, listening to the radio, just taught himself and just
That's
figured
all.
it out, right? And then, he just built up, and he's playing in the US. Finally, he ends up playing with like Little Richard, Isley Brothers, all these people in 66. Wasn't making any money, making barely any money, and then he just kept on showing up, kept on playing these gigs, and was building his own style, even within the bands he was playing with. And
Hmm.
sometimes, it would come out and he'd get fired because like that doesn't sound like the Isley Brothers. That doesn't sound like Little Richard. What are you doing? You're wrecking the song. And then he would just keep on doing it. And then eventually, because he kept on showing up and playing gigs and just always being there, even though he's not making enough money to even eat, the guys from England, the Animals, somebody from the Animals, saw him in New York and said, "This guy's I never seen a guy like this." Paid for him to go to freaking London, and they just took off. But he would have never had that opportunity if he said, "Well, I can't feed myself. I'm barely. I'm going to just stop and go work in a warehouse." He just kept on going, and he became like the greatest guitar player ever, even to this day, because he kept on going even when he couldn't even really feed himself.
That's right.
Because that magic moment happened because he believed in what he was doing, even if it wasn't showing him results. And this is like really important to kids today because like you do that post and it gets 5 views and you give up because you wanted it to get a million views off the bat. But like it's not going to get a million views off the bat. You got to keep on working. You got to
Hmm.
keep it's workman behavior that gets the results. It's
That's
not
right.
some magic bullet that like right off the first bat you get the million views. Like that usually don't happen.
Absolutely. I believe in relentlessly pursuing your vision and just day in and day out. And sometimes the result isn't even what you actually want out of it. It's the mindset that you build along the way to your destination. It's the character you create. It's the thoughts you put into it, the words, the just the actions, they turn into habits and impacting others. You could have such a strong work ethic and be so selfish about it and not pass on any of your knowledge that you accumulate over the years, and you're not going to get anything
Yeah,
out
you
of
don't help anybody else. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you have to learn that you're in the world, and it's
it.
kind of like the law of attractions. Like you're not just an island. But there's a lot of people that are so into individualism that they don't understand about the community or the communal aspect of being a human being. Humanity is we're very social beings, like ants,
Mhm.
and not to say, oh, ants and bees, they're social, they can't survive without the other ants and bees. Human beings are thinking that, well, I'm not like that. I can just be an island. No, we're kind of like we need to have community. We
Mhm.
need to have to, human beings work when we're connected. But then we've been told like you can be self-reliant, you can be totally by yourself, and there has to be a connection to the outside world, and is an inside and outside. Now you
Mhm.
can't be like not fully there inside to connect to the outside. So you do have to work on yourself, and then when you're in that right position and you're radiating the right energy, then you'll
Mhm.
connect,
Yeah, we're
and
all
you'll
at
get that community connection, and then everything will start working. But you got to be in the right frequency.
yeah, we're all at different levels of maturity. When we're born, we're dependent. As we get older, we make our own money, we become independent. But in order to achieve success, true success, you need to learn to be intradependent, where it's not about what can you do for me, it's about what can we do for one another. How can we become a mastermind and not only help ourselves,
Mhm.
help the people around us? Because that's how civilizations were created. It wasn't one man by himself.
Yeah, you can't build a pyramid like one guy's idea. Like it has to to be the whole community being willing to put that together, right? You can't build those things. You can't build the aqueducts. You can't build anything in Rome, anything in Mesopotamia, Eritrea. Like none of those places would have got built if it wasn't the communal aspect, of the connection to the people believing in it and feeling that they should build Rome. They should build Egypt. Might have been the king's idea, but it's like if everybody rebelled, it's like, no, the king's wrong. Like, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
I strongly believe that all of us are connected to higher intelligence, and our conscience. If you listen, if you drop the vices and you really listen, you can hear your conscience telling you what to do next. Whether it be drop a couple pounds or put on some muscle, whatever it is that you're attracted to, whatever you desire, you should acquire. Your conscience is going to tell you to do good things. It's not going to tell you to do bad things. So if you're having bad thoughts, you need to check those bad thoughts. But if you live right, your world will be right. And if you just, you get after it every day, and, you don't have to tell anybody. You can just focus on yourself. I believe that when you think it before you speak it, then you actually multiply that thought in your head. It's almost like you can almost brainwash yourself into doing what you want to do if you're just constantly thinking about it all day. If it's the first thing on your mind when you wake up in the morning as you're making your cup of coffee, or even if it's the last thing you do right before you fall asleep, when you're at your most vulnerable, when your mind is the softest, and you can just water that seed of thought and make it grow powerfully.
Yeah, that's interesting because sometimes in the Buddhist mindset, like we have these thoughts and we can do our meditation, but we also have the kind of things where we can kind of speak it out loud. So we'll take that what was inside and also put it outside, and it would become like an affirmation. So it's kind of like a balance again. In our mindset, it's a balance of like the inside and the outside. So you got the inside voice and you got the outside voice. If you can sync them to actually be in the same mission for the same goal, then it actually can make it so. You can make it happen. That's the way we think it out. But like it does start from like maybe the inside, and then it radiates to the outside, and then the alignment of getting it together. But like they're all different mindsets about how you do it.
Right on.
So like we have this understanding of the inside. So I understand what you're saying. But like sometimes it's like there's different pieces for different, where you are. So that makes sense to me. But I understand how you're approaching it. So it does. I understand where you are.
At the beginning of my process, I used to wake up and think about what I regretted about yesterday. So when my journey was at its immature level, I was regretting what I did yesterday. So that was my mission first thing in the morning. Get up and just think about what I did yesterday that I don't want to do today, and carry that with me throughout the day, so that we're at our most vulnerable at night when we're just tired and our bodies want to get rest, but our minds are still active. A lot of us don't use our minds that much. Yeah. But if you just hold your beliefs true to yourself every day, and you listen to your conscience, you use regret as your guideline, you can kind of find the path that you should be on.
Yeah, we have that internal conversation, which some people don't want to avoid. Like you're saying, some people don't want to really analyze the lessons learned for the day, because like you have the lessons learned from the last 5 minutes, and you got the last hour, and you got the whole, however you want to parse the time. There's lessons learned from everything you've done in the past, and you can be really micro about it to the 5 minutes, to the last hour, to the 8 hours, or 2 weeks ago, a year ago, whatever. But some people never want to even go through the lessons learned. I said, well, I never made a mistake. Or if I made a mistake, I don't want to talk about the mistake. And so, like, if you got to get to that point where you actually start to address, well, were they mistakes or were they this, I was trying something and I didn't hit I was kind of didn't hit the bar. So
Right.
are you kind of really degrading your effort in a way that's like self-deflating when you didn't really need to be self-deflating? Maybe you hit like 90%, but
Right.
because you didn't hit it, you think you just lost the whole thing. So there's perspective, right? Like how much of it are you really being down on yourself? Was like you put a little more and you would have got it instead of giving up. So it's like, so you start to look at things and have different perspective, right?
Absolutely. We're the ones that have the power to choose whether if it was a mistake or a lesson. And yeah, honestly, a lot of people don't want to think. And that, in my opinion, is the hardest work you can actually do. Any job that requires you to think, that's why it's stressful. Because you need to think.
Yeah.
And like I said,
Yeah.
a
I
lot
mean,
of people don't.
it's hard because it's a hard, yeah, that's a hard place to be. Because
Mhm.
like if you're at a job where you don't have to think, it's kind of like autopilot and you phone it in,
Mhm.
then you kind of can just you kind of stuck in the comfort of that. If you've got something where you do use critical thinking, like in my day job, I'm actually a software designer, so I have to
Right.
really make a lot of decisions that are like they have a consequence. It's like
Right.
logic, math, algebra, algorithms, all kinds of stuff. And so you got to really, and it can wear you out. That kind of
Mhm.
stuff at the end of the day, you can be like tired and you didn't move physically like somebody working in a factory or working in the woods in the logger or something, but your mind can make you just as tired, it,
Mhm.
working through problems. And then some people will say, well, that's not real work. It's like, well, yeah, there's different levels of
It
work. You can
is. It
get
is.
bored, you can get burned out doing that, just like you get burned out cutting wood or working
Mhm.
on an assembly line. You can have the same consequence, and some people don't consider the parallels.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of my most favorite books that I've read and I like to repeat from time to time is Outwitting the Devil. And the reason I like that book so much is because it talks about how the devil's gotten so many of us to just be wanderers because we don't think. We just wander
Mm-hmm.
through life. We just take life for what we think it is, and it's not actually what we think it is. It's just our perception of it. But the thinking man has the most freedom. The man that thinks the most and doesn't fall victim to his own thoughts, that man has more power than the person that just goes along with the flow, doesn't want to put in any of the um, self mastery, doesn't want to break themselves down and pinpoint those weaknesses, because lots of us like to talk about our strengths. Just about nobody likes to talk about
Mm-hmm.
their weak. We we don't like criticism, unfortunately. But when you ask for the criticism and you decompartmentalize it and use it to improve yourself, then it's like taking a veil off. It's like getting your head out of the smoky
Yeah, it's
cloud.
real. It's it's interesting
And
in the arts we get a lot of criticism. Yeah, and the thing is like you have to kind of deal with it because like you think about it, if you're an artist, like 99% of what you do doesn't work. Like a lot of things, like if the example, like I write a song. A lot of times we have like 100 versions or 100 demos. And only one of the songs actually works, right? So do you look at those 99 other songs as failures, or were they
no,
steps on the way to get what
absolutely.
the one that worked, right? So that's where a lot of people are like, well, if I had a kind of track record like that, I wouldn't even do it. But that's like in the arts, that's what it is. It's like
Mhm.
most of your stuff doesn't hit. So and then you have to still show up. And so
Absolutely.
how do you do that? And that's a hard thing to do. But that's like life. A lot of times people don't understand. Like when you really push it, you push it out of your comfort zone. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
kind of living in this new age with like the AI and the robotics and all this stuff, and people are going to have to kind of push out of their
Mm-hmm.
comfort zone to survive this new age. Kind of like the horse and buggy went to the car,
Mm-hmm.
and the guys that were putting the horseshoes on the horse, they're out of work. They had to go and learn how to work in the Ford plant. And the
Right.
ones that didn't, well, they didn't get to go there, right? Because they couldn't imagine it. And it was like, so you have to sometimes push yourself out of your comfort zone
Mm-hmm.
when we're on this age now. We're going into another age, and there's going to be a
Absolutely.
lot of people if they can't get out of their comfort zone. And the comfort zone is like, are you really comfortable? You're probably not even doing what you really want to do, right? You're just
No.
kind of treading water, and you say, "Well, that's my life. That's what I want." It's like, did you really want that, or you were kind of told that's what you want? You could be an entrepreneur. You could have your own
Mm-hmm.
thing, right? You don't have to be
Mm-hmm.
working 9 to 5 in that factory. You could do something else, but you think that's what it should be, and that's where
Mm-hmm.
the problem is. It's like, who told you that's the way it should be?
I think we should all look at babies and look at how resilient they are. Because when you spoke about the track record of 99 mistakes and just one banger, well, babies learn to walk by falling constantly, but that doesn't make them give up. When I was watching my son learn to walk, I just kept thinking to myself, man, that little baby's a savage. Look at him. He doesn't stop. And that's what got me going to just
Yeah.
keep it pushing as well.
When you're young and you learn to ride a bike, like how many times do you fall off of that bike? Anybody who learns how to ride a bike or a skateboard, they did not do it without scraping their knee, falling off the bike, crashing all over the place. Like that's what and as a kid, you just accepted that. But adults, they're
Mhm.
like, I don't want to be that kid falling off the bike. I don't want to be that kid falling off the skateboard, not being able to falling down from the roller skates. You don't want to do it, but like you have to do
Mhm.
it. you know,
As we get older, our egos become a lot more vulnerable.
yeah, that's the problem, and that's where you have
No.
to kind of check yourself, right?
Mhm.
Like, do I really have to be all ego?
That brings up something that I heard recently, that in order to be a true man, you have to be comfortable with embarrassment.
hmm
You have to be
Yep.
comfortable with running your mouth and not producing the results, but still pushing it anyway. Like, for example, I always wanted a six pack and I worked out so hard for years, but I didn't know the right nutrition that I needed.
Oh,
But that
I
didn't
get it.
stop me,
hmm
you know, because at a certain point I stopped working out for the looks and I was only just doing it for the positive mindset. And even though I now feel as best as I've ever felt, it doesn't feel any different than when I was just pursuing the happiness, the joy that I that I cultivated within. Because like I said before, I was so depressed, I didn't want to live anymore. And I'm glad that I didn't do anything that I couldn't come back from, because the payoff was amazing. I feel
hmm
like I put in all the sweat and tears required to strengthen my mind to the point where there's long stretches of time that I don't feel any negative any feelings and emotions. I could feel sad for a split second because I do still have a heart, but it's not something
hmm
that I hold on to. I'm not I, I I'm not in love with my emotions. I know that I'm not my emotions. I know that I'm not even my body or my mind. We're divine beings, actually. And when we realize that we were born or created to be much more, then then you can start actually living. and start seeing the purpose in your life. And I believe that it's to be the best man I can possibly be, so I can be an example for others. Because, like I said before, I was going to the gym for myself to make myself feel better. And I was so shut in this mindset of just me, 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 me. And then when I became more comfortable in my skin, other people became more comfortable being around me. And that's when I started getting people coming over and telling me that I inspire them, that they admire my work ethic, that they can't believe that I went from weighing 265 to now weighing 180. And
Mhm.
the satisfaction
That's a
of
superpower.
absolutely.
That's good.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. I mean, we always end up doing this, getting to the hour faster than we ever expect. But I think that's your story. The story that like your superpower was you've realized that you had this ability within, and now
Mhm.
you're without you're able to, connect to other people because you got that like that positivity around you. You're radiating that good vibration, that good vibe, and that's the story, and that's a real positive story that we were telling here tonight. And that's why we talk to people like yourself, and if people can connect to you on your Instagram, and we've got that there, and people will be able to click through that to directly connect with you. But if people connect with you on your Instagram, what happens? That you help them, you can talk to you about getting into your program.
Absolutely. I teach what I learned. So if you guys want to learn how to get your mindset, nutrition, and training on point, hit me up on my Instagram account. We can work together and figure out what you're struggling with. I personally found that the nutrition was the most difficult thing without the right direction. But then when I learned to track my macros, you'd be surprised. You can be in pretty good shape just by knowing what macros your body needs without even having to go to the gym. You could be someone who walks a lot or rides your bike a lot. You're not going to have the same physique as someone who builds their body at the gym, but you will have a low body fat percentage. You'll feel better. We can figure out, if you have joint problems, we can figure out how to get rid of that too. A lot of the times it's just the overweight, or if you're allergic to gluten, you can
Mm-hmm.
cut that out. If you're allergic to dairy, I didn't know I was gluten intolerant and dairy intolerant. And that's what was causing all my knee pain and all my wrist and elbow pain. And it's
Oh
just about
wow.
figuring out what
Mm-hmm.
you need, what your body needs, and accountability. Like you said
That's real.
earlier, a lot of us.
That's really important. Well, a lot of people don't know about nutrition, and you go to their doctors, and the doctors don't tell you about it, and they
Oh
have no
no.
idea there's so many people that are allergic to dairy, allergic to gluten, allergic to the chemicals in the foods. And if they
Hmm.
start, having whole foods and better quality, and understand their allergies and understand
Hmm.
what their body's telling them. But
Hmm.
like it's like we're near the end, but it's like a lot of people don't listen to their body, like they don't listen to their head,
Exactly.
what they're saying. Your body's telling you stuff. And if you
Absolutely.
get pains and different things going on, it's telling you something. And they're like, "Oh, this I don't know what it's saying, but it's telling you something. You're not reading it." But again, thank you. Because we're at the end of the hour, but I really appreciate you being here today. And it was really cool. And this was your first time on a podcast, and this is
Yes,
great.
sir. Thank
I
you.
encourage you to
Thank
go and show up on more podcasts because I think you have a great story to tell.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for being on the program.
Right on. You have a great day. Thank you.